Hey guys, welcome back to the Matt Newton Football Show. I'm your host, Matt, and we're here to talk about my reactions from the Dolphins in Week 1 versus the Jacksonville Jaguars on the Matt Newton Football Show. My first reaction to Week 1 was actually what happened before the game, which is Tyreek Hill ending up on the floor, detained, and in handcuffs before Week 1 of the regular season. Like, what's going on here? How does this happen? And for a player like him to have such superstardom and fame in the city of Miami, for him to be detained by the police in such a way is just really unthinkable. But unfortunately, this is something that we've seen. It's happened way too much in our society. And thankfully, Tyreek Hill was able to get out of that situation without having any physical harm that I'm aware of. Maybe there was some emotional harm or some psychological harm, but either way, Tyreek Hill was able to escape that situation with his life. And that's the most important thing. Everything that happens after that, I guess, we'll just reflect on at another time. But to get Tyreek Hill and have him not only survive that situation, but make it in time for the game and participate in the game is a huge win in my opinion. My second reaction to the game actually piggybacks off my first reaction, which is Tyreek Hill made it to the game and he performed incredibly, especially given the circumstances. Tyreek Hill finished the game with 7 catches for 130 yards and a touchdown, the touchdown being an 80-yard score from Tua Tagovailoa. And it was such an exceptional play at such a crucial time during the game. Tyreek Hill was able to get behind the Jaguars secondary and catch a beautifully lofted pass by Tua Tagovailoa to catch the ball and run down the field for an 80-yard touchdown. He even beat the Jaguars safety, Cisco, to the edge so that he can turn the ball upfield and make extra yards after the catch. And that play was so crucial because it came on the heels of another play that Jevon Holland made, which also makes this list. So for Tyreek Hill to make that huge play in such a crucial moment for the team was just exceptional. The offensive line was able to hold up in protection and give Tua the amount of time that he needed to complete that pass. So all around, it was just an incredible play at a time when the Dolphins really needed it. My third reaction from the game piggybacks off my second one, which is Jevon Holland makes the defensive play of the game. And this game was so important for the Miami Dolphins. The Jaguars were able to drive down the length of the field, and Travis Etienne was about to cross the goal line to give the Jaguars a 24-7 lead late in the third quarter. But Jevon Holland managed to get in there, punch the ball out of Travis Etienne's hands, and the ball was recovered by the Dolphins, allowing them to hold off on that 24-7 lead and keep the lead at 10 points at 17-7. And that was such an important play. The Dolphins aren't really a team that's really played well from behind in the last couple seasons. And usually when you get the Dolphins down, especially late in the game, they start to unravel a bit. But Jevon Holland making that play made you believe that the Dolphins are a little bit more tougher late in the game than they probably were in past seasons. And for them to be able to show this kind of resiliency and to be able to come back in such a dramatic fashion, especially since that play led directly to the Tyreek Hill 80-yard touchdown, is such a wonderful thing to see if you're a Dolphin fan. The Dolphins were able to overcome adversity in this game and put the pressure on Trevor Lawrence in the second half that allowed them to come away with the victory. My fourth reaction from the game was actually Jaylen Waddle catching a 67-yard reception that allowed them to get some momentum in the game. And this was something the Dolphins really needed. They needed a spark to try to get back into the game. The offense seemed like it was struggling a bit. The timing was off, and it seemed to be a unit that hadn't really played together in quite some time. It was an important play at that point in the game because the Dolphins offense really needed a spark. Jaylen Waddle ended up finishing with 5 catches for 103 yards, and it was particularly impressive because Jaylen Waddle left the game earlier to be evaluated for concussion. And if you're a Dolphin fan and you remember that game where Teddy Bridgewater was pulled out against the Jets, you know that when those independent neurologists come and they take a look at your players, there's no telling whether they can pull the guy off the field for the rest of the game. You just don't know. So Jaylen Waddle was able to go into the blue tent, come back out, and not only finish the game, but also have an outstanding game for the Dolphins. And it's something that they really needed from him. His production definitely helped not only the stat sheet, but also the final result of the game. My fifth reaction is Tua blasted his teammates at halftime for the type of effort that they were giving. And I don't know if Tua feels more empowered because of that new contract he has, or if he's just matured and is able to show a little bit more leadership. Certainly, Mike McDaniel has empowered him to be a vocal leader in the team. And now it seems like he's stepping up to the challenge. And this is a kind of quarterback leadership that every team needs in the NFL. And coming from Tua, who wasn't really that kind of guy since he first arrived in Miami, is a great thing for the Dolphins to have. Jordan Poyer made comments in training camp that sometimes when you hit the Dolphins early, they tend to fold late in the second half. So it stands to reason that Tua's speech to his teammates really invigorated the passion and the desire that they needed to finish this game with a win. My sixth reaction is Jeff Wilson Jr. finishes the game strong on the ground. And the Dolphins certainly needed this kind of performance from him. Raheem Mostert struggled early in the game to get anything going. Achane got 10 carries, but he did most of his damage in the passing game. But they needed tough yards late in the game to try to milk the clock and try to come away with the win. And Jeff Wilson was able to provide that. And for a guy who looked like he was on the outside looking in on the 53, a guy who was thought to be not even active in this game, perhaps being behind Jalen right on the depth chart, it was really good to see Jeff Wilson jump in there, take control of the running game, give them tough yardage when they needed it, and help them to secure the win. And Jeff Wilson Jr. may not have a big role on this team, but certainly he's carved out a little niche for himself to be the kind of tough, in-between the tackles runner that the Dolphins need. My seventh reaction is Alec Ingold the new Lusaka Polite? Alex Ingold was able to convert a 3rd and short right behind the block of Liam Eichenberg to pick up a crucial first down for the Miami Dolphins. The Miami Dolphins haven't been known to be the type of physical team that runs between the tackles and pick up tough yards. But on this day, between Jeff Wilson Jr. and Alec Ingold, they were able to make short yardage conversions that the Dolphins really needed. And the fact that it happened behind a Liam Eichenberg block was just really unpredictable. You couldn't see this coming. But clearly Mike McDaniel's had a revelation of sorts, even though it's a small sample size, that you have to be a little bit more physical in the running game in order to get tough yards when you need them. And the Dolphins struggled mightily in this area last season, but it seems at least for 2024, the Dolphins are off to a good start. Let's hope that this is more of a pattern than a one-off thing, because the Dolphins need to be tough and late in the games when it really matters. My eighth reaction is Emmanuel, Ogbah, and Jalen Phillips came up with key sacks when the Dolphins really needed it. And this was something that was a bit of a question mark coming into the regular season. Shaq Barrett retired in training camp, and Bradley Chubb was still recovering from his ACL injury last season. Jalen Phillips was working out on the side, but you weren't really sure if he'd be able to play in the first game of the regular season. But he also had pressures all day long, moving Trevor Lawrence off of his spot, and then late in the fourth quarter having a game-sealing type of sack to end the game. And this kind of performance from him was very important because we really didn't know what to expect out of him, how long it'll take him to get fully recovered after having that Achilles tear last season. But Jalen Phillips was all over the field. He looked very good. And Emmanuel Ogbah, kudos to him. He comes back to the team after not really being used last season by Vic Fangio. And in training camp, he looked good all training camp. He looked like a guy who had really never lost a step. He looked like the kind of guy that was the kind of pass rusher that earned himself a new contract. So for him to go out there and perform, especially late in the game when the Dolphins needed it, was such a great thing to see. So the Dolphins still have Bradley Chubb coming back, and Chop Robinson's still learning the pro game. So by the time all of these pieces come together, the Dolphins should be a better defense in the second half if they stay healthy. My ninth reaction is Achane excels in the passing game. And if you've been watching my videos all off season, you know this is something I've been campaigning for. Achane is the second most explosive player on the team and third most talented wide receiver. So for him to be getting the ball in the way that he got the ball in this first game is just really something that's exciting to see. And he also had 10 carries in addition to his 7 receptions. So in all, he touched the ball 17 times during the game. And I think this is something the Dolphins have to do going forward, at least until Odell Beckham Jr. returns, if he does return. But Achane getting this kind of workload will help the Dolphins in so many ways. He can take short passes and convert them into longer passes. Also, he was number 1 in the team last season with yards after the catch. So Achane continuing to catch these passes and continuing to help the Dolphins move the chains, and also giving Tua a easy option to get the ball out of his hands will make this offense even more explosive long term. My 10th and probably most important reaction is the Dolphins managed to stay healthy after week 1. And in this NFL, that's no guarantee, but I'm happy the Dolphins were fortunate enough to get out of this first week unscathed. And, the thing is with injuries, you never know when they're going to happen. You never know which player is going to happen to. So it can really have a really profound effect on the rest of your season. And the Dolphins did have Jalen Ramsey come into the game with a bit of a hamstring issue. Jaylen Waddle was temporarily removed from the game to be evaluated for concussion. But aside from those things, the Dolphins didn't have any real injuries reported from the team, and that's really a good thing. The Dolphins need to stay healthy to have any chance of finishing this season strong and making a run in the playoffs. So far in 2024, they're off to a good start. Let me know what you guys think. Leave a comment in the section below, and I'll see you in the next video.